Alrighty, so we're talking about anime. We're talking about different connections and lessons learned and junk from them. And today we're gonna do a little bit of a story time. The whole reason this is even a week at all is because I'm interested in anime, of course, right? And so, like many people my age, I think the first real anime that I knew was an anime that I got into was Naruto, right? You know, stereotypical, right? Um, but it's like I was going through middle school, and it's like, I just moved. I don't really know many people, and then start watching Naruto. Whatever, it's a good show. And then my sister said something along the lines of, "Hey," she wanted to do Taekwondo, and she was like, "I want everyone to do it with me." uh, and so she got really excited about that, got real into it. It was like, "Hey, you should totally do Taekwondo with me." And I was like, sounds like work, right? And then she was like, "Oh, well, no, think about this, right? You could be like the guys in Naruto." And I'm like, "No, I can't. Like, they literally walk on water. What kind of stupid idea is that?" And she's like, "Yeah, but there's one guy who doesn't. That's Rock Lee, right? Whose major ability is that he can kick and he can punch. And that's it. That's all he does. He doesn't do, super crazy magic, whatever BS. He can kick and he can punch. And that's all he does. And he's one of the most badass characters in the show." And so it's like, yeah, okay. That'd be cool. And so, like, at the time, I think I had only watched like the first 2 or 3 seasons or whatever it was. Um, and so it was like, yeah, Gara versus Lee was like the most epic thing ever at the time. So it was like, yeah, that's cool, right? And so, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm convinced. I'll give it a shot. And so then I tried Taekwondo. It turned out I was pretty good at it. Um, I got the right muscle memory, I guess, and I eventually became a black belt. And so the point of this story is not to be like, "Oh, look at me, my black belt," or, "Hey, my sister's so tricky, she's like, ha, anime, do it." But it's just this cool thought that fundamentally we watch media, we see stuff happen, and then we have this tendency to just kind of let it be entertainment and just let it fly by. But I would say that doing Taekwondo was like one of the most memorable and impactful experiences in my life, right? It was huge. And it's not just like, oh, the experience was so great, which it was. It fundamentally changed my relationship to my body, because all of a sudden, for one, I was in shape, so that felt great. For two, how you move your body is like essentially what Taekwondo is teaching you, right? Martial arts teach you how to move your body, and so that comes into play all the time for whatever I'm doing. Just by knowing how to move your body is like a huge deal. It very much improves your quality of life. improves your balance and your functional strength. Because even if you didn't gain any muscle, which of course how could you not, right? But even if you didn't, just knowing how to balance uh, with your body allows you to use more of the muscle you already have. And so it's like this massive improvement on my life just because of the thought, well, you saw it on TV, go do it. Right? Like, that's pretty much all my sister said. But I was like, yeah, sure, do it. And that's what I want to bring up. That you see all these crazy things on TV and in anime and in video games and whatever, and you think to yourself, well, that's cool and all, but I can't do that. And the answer is no, you can't. Yet, right? What if you tried, you improved, and then eventually one day you could do it? Now, of course, I'm not literally Rock Lee flying off on walls and, dropping 2-ton leg weights and, somehow flying through the air. Like, I'm not doing that, of course. But, like, I did something, right? I'm better off for it. Because I tried. I said, hey, it is cool. Let me try it. And I think that another great example of this is Food Wars. Now, this is not as personal of an example, right? This is not like story time. Hey, look at me. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a big chef because of Food Wars. Actually, I kind of liked cooking before I watched Food Wars. But what was really funny is that this year I got chickens, right? Actually, from my sister. So thank you for that. And so I got chickens, and so then all of a sudden I have tons of eggs, right? And I'm like, I just got to use more and more eggs. And so then I made some what are they called? Sponge cakes, right? Sponge cakes, which if you don't know Chinese sponge cake, you should get to know Chinese sponge cake because it is delicious. Think angel food cake, except angel food cake is dry and disgusting compared to Chinese sponge cake. Like, that's what we're talking. It is like 10 times better, easily. Not an exaggeration. Chinese sponge cake, give it a try. All right, but anyway, I remembered that as a kid, right? Have the Chinese sponge cake. It was delicious. It's a great thing. And then I was like, well, I got all these eggs. Let me try making it. And I made it, and it was delicious. And it was so great. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's really, really awesome. But I still had a lot of eggs. And that they just kept coming, right? They just kept coming. So what I eventually did was like, okay, let me use like 3 eggs a day. Just, breakfast, right? Easy peasy. Have some breakfast. 3, maybe 4 eggs. That's a good breakfast. But just like scrambled eggs or even like an omelet, like, yeah, they're good, but I got tired of it. And so I thought, hey, wait a second. What if I took the Chinese sponge cake and literally just cooked it like a pancake? And so then I was like, oh man, do it. And so then I made that, and it was like, oh man, this is so delicious. It was so fluffy. It was absolutely fluffy because, you whip the egg whites and it's so fluffy and so good. And I'm like, oh man, this is so fantastic. But circling back to the point, after I had already been making that for a few weeks, my wife and I decided, hey, we're going to give Food Wars a shot, right? We're going to watch that anime. And then eventually we watched one episode where the main character literally makes that dish. And I was like, oh my gosh, I made that up. Like, I did that. I did that. And so this is the shoes on the other foot this time. With Naruto, I saw it on the show, and I was like, maybe I can try to do that. But now, because I'm grown up and I'm making my own decisions and I'm doing and growing and learning stuff and trying new things all the time anyway, I got to the point where I circled around and I watched the show copy me. I mean, obviously they're not actually copying me, right? Like, I didn't invent this for everyone always, right? There's not, like they say, there's nothing new under the sun, right? But I came up with it myself. I didn't get it from the show. I got it before I ever watched the show. Because I was experimenting and trying new things. And then the show's literally doing what I just did. And I'm like, wow. That feels good. Because it means that my idea was such a good idea that they used the same idea. And they made it this big thing. Like, oh yeah, you gotta go and do this and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. That feels so good. It felt so good. And so going back to the point, I watched Naruto, I tried Taekwondo, it felt great. I did cooking stuff, and then I saw it on Food Wars, and that felt great. And you see, the point is, shows, media, games, whatever. It feels so much more fulfilling and so much more fun when you can look at it and say, I could probably do that. Or maybe I have done that. That's just so much more fun. Because then it's not just, oh, the show's good. The show is commenting on how good your life is and saying, hey, you are good. And then you watch that show and you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm awesome. I'm cool. And that feels so good. That's an amazing feeling that is hard to describe. Because you get the pride and the good feelings, and you're like, oh man, I'm awesome too. That they're showing off this guy, just the top chef, he's gonna take on the world, oh my gosh, he's so cool. And I did that. I came up with the same idea that he did. That feels good. That feels really cool. And that's something that I think many more people should try to do. That you should try to reproduce that. That if you see something that's really cool, really awesome, think to yourself, well, what if I could do that? What if you could be the one that does that awesome thing? And maybe it's something like, physical, like, hey, I saw this backflip, that was awesome. I could do a backflip maybe, right? I'll give it a shot. And you'll fall and you'll hurt yourself and you'll be like, ah. But then you'll try it again. And you'll do a little bit better that time. You try it again and again. And eventually you can do it. And then now you're the guy who can do the backflip. That's cool. That you, or it could be something, more creative like cooking, more intellectual like, I don't know, think about what do you call it? Um, Dr. Stone. That's another one that's exactly like this. The whole reason Dr. Stone is entertaining to watch is because he's literally rebuilding civilization from nothing. And that's really cool. But you know what's even cooler? When you watch these other people who are like, oh, you see how he told the recipe for Senku Cola on the show? Well, now I did that. That's awesome. That's so cool. What if you could do something like from Dr. Stone? You could build something, make something, do something. I mean, I know it's just an anime, it's all like fake and fiction, but at the same time, what if? That'd be cool. Worth a shot. Some of those things are not even that technically difficult, right? But like, hey, what if you could do that too, right? That'd be so awesome. So cool. And that's the thing. That's part of the reason I like anime, is because you get to see all of this breadth of things, all of these many cool things, and they explain it, and they talk about, oh man, he's doing this super secret technique of the thing that does this stuff. Like, oh yeah, I heard that he's trained for like 200 years to be able to do this one technique. Like, yeah, of course, they do the commentary, and that makes it more exciting, more cool, right? Because it's like you get to experience not only you see something cool, but you get to see other people think it's cool. And that makes you think, what if I did it? What if I did that, huh? And so that's the thing. Go ahead. Try. It doesn't have to be anime. It can be anything, right? But you see something cool, give it a shot. Like, do your research first. Don't do something stupid or dangerous, but like, hey, try. See what happens. What's the worst that can happen, right? Because the best that can happen is that now you'll be able to hold your head a little bit higher. You'll look in the mirror and say, hey, that's that guy who could do a backflip, right? It feels good. It builds your self-esteem because you've actually done something real in the real world that matters. Maybe not to everyone, but to you. You know why? Because when they did it on that show, oh man, that was cool. So, go ahead. Give it a shot. Try something. Have fun.